the object for this evening is for us to talk to you about how to start a class act. And we want to share what we have done, and we have a couple of other classes who are part of the ClassACT community who will share what they've done, and see if you think that this might work for your class. So to do that, we would like to tell you a little bit about our origin story. Back in 2013, we were about to have our 40th reunion. And for those of you who are much younger, please know that as we're speaking, you can start something like this at any age. And so in 2013, our classmates were thinking about what we could do to create positive change. And we thought about doing a day of service. And then some of us, and Jonathan Sprague, who was the co-founder with me, is on this call, I think, thought that it would be really great to figure out how to get our classmates to work together to create positive change in a longer model. And we understood that there's a lot of expertise in the class. There are people in lots of different fields, and there are vast networks. And we, as a class, each class has its own culture, and that is indicated by a bunch of things: who gets into Harvard that year, but also what the climate is around them. And for us, we entered in the fall of '69. We had the Vietnam War. Dr. Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy had both been assassinated. Civil rights was moving into Black power. Feminism was a big and relatively new movement. And so there was a lot of activity and action and student activity then. And that has stayed with us through our lives. As we were preparing for the 40th reunion, we thought, well, what can we do? And Jonathan and I had a conversation about that. And then we reached out to bunches of classmates before the reunion, and about 40 of them, and said, what do you think about the idea of creating some sort of organization that would allow us to work together to create positive change? And as a result of that, we were able at our 40th reunion, and reunions are a good way to get this started, to meet with, I think, 120 classmates and say, what do you think about this? And out of that group, 7 of us came together and decided that we would try to work on creating something. And the mantra for our class act is, it's not too late to change the world. So how did we get started? Well, we had these reunion meetings, and from that we formed a working group, and that working group did surveys reaching out to our classmates and got an idea of what people were interested in working on, which helped us create a vision. We built a strong and diverse leadership team among our first 7 people. And what we decided was we really wanted to be incorporated as a 501c3, as a nonprofit, so that we would have some flexibility to do some pretty interesting work. So we did that and were incorporated by April 2014. And so once we were incorporated, we began to turn these ideas into reality and into shared initiatives. So the mission for our Class Act and generally for Class Act is service and relationship. For us, we want to address important local, national, and global issues. We want to build and renew relationships among classmates. We look to connect across Harvard classes. So part of our mission has always been to engage other classes, and that's what we're doing tonight, to try to get them to organize themselves class by class and to have fun through all of this. So now I'm going to hand this off to Stan.
Thank you, Marion. We developed 5 strategies that guide our work. We accelerate ideas, innovate at key moments, and engage classmates to build something lasting. And one strategy is especially important for tonight: sharing the model. That's exactly what this session is about. We've been doing this from the beginning, and today there are 17 classes who are part of the ClassACT community. Here's a short video that brings it to life.
From our very first board meeting, when we were tossing around ideas of what ClassACT could be, I felt personally that I was part of a movement that was bigger than me, and it would provide me the opportunity to feel that I could make a difference and work with classmates, many of whom I didn't know at all, to make the world a better place.
So our original intent was to build a social justice community among our class, and that necessitated to me, because I was the organizer of these monthly meetings, for three main goals. One was to build a strong and trusting relations with these and open communications between our classmates, many of whom never even knew each other at Harvard, but were interested in social justice and community building. And to focus on the issues to draw a wide diversity of classmates. So we didn't want to narrow our focus too early. So we just spotlighted their expertise and work, and thereby we mutually increased our own knowledge base and expanded racial, cultural awareness and inspired effective action efforts where we could.
Many of us had been activists for years, and when we came together for our 40th reunion, we realized how valuable it would be to pool our energy and our resources and work for social justice causes. It's been great to get to know classmates I would not have met otherwise, and to feel like, despite our advancing years, we can still be effective and make a difference in the world. During COVID, when we started the forums, I realized how powerful our outreach could be. We brought experts and activists together, and we disseminated valuable information. We engaged people who did not always agree in dialogue, and we also identified areas that we personally wanted to know more about. Some of our bridge partners are doing very important work, and ClassACT has given them exposure, financial resources, and support. Connecting with like-minded people that I shared 4 years with, even though I didn't know them at the time, has been a great boon to my social life, and there is nothing that can replace this feeling of community. Working with others for a common goal, and I know it sounds hippie-ish, but to make the world a better place, I think we need to do that now more than ever.
What you just saw is what this looks like in practice. At its core, the ClassACT model is simple but powerful. Community and effort becomes collective impact. And importantly, this model is flexible. Each class shapes it in its own way. It can take many forms, working groups, partnerships, forums, civic engagement, and collaborative projects. The specifics vary, but the core idea is the same. People coming together to do meaningful work. Marion?
Yeah, so we wanted to tell you a little bit about the working groups, and we have topical working groups, and the areas in which our class does work are justice and civic engagement, the environment and climate, health, education, and culture. And through all of those, some of them have 20 or 30 classmates or more, others are much smaller. And they work together to figure out what things they want to be working on, and then they create projects to work on. We also have we have a board because we're a nonprofit, and we have an admin team as well as a communications team, and we produce Zoom forums, so we have a production team as well. Stan?
Partnerships with nonprofits. We offer pro bono consulting services from classmates who have specific expertise. We also have developed toolbox webinars that provide useful solutions that address nonprofit organizational challenges. We also started Meet Our Bridges webinars that give our bridge partners exposure for their mission and the availability to get volunteers and donations. Marion?
And our education, we have educational forums, And we started those during the pandemic. And ClassACT is class achieving change together. So everything that we do is focused on getting people to act. And so the forums are educational around the topics and the efforts that the working groups are working on. But they also have several calls to action from the panelists. And the panelists are experts not only from our class, but from around the world. And they're all calls to action so that people can think about working locally or working with their classmates to do something that would affect the topic that is mentioned. The other piece of our educational work is the Benazir Bhutto Leadership Program, named after our classmate Benazir Bhutto, which brings people from predominantly Muslim countries who are mid-career leaders to the Kennedy School to strengthen their leadership. Stan?
Collaborative and class alumni projects, we schedule regional in-person events and programs that create a sense of community. We also offer ample networking opportunities for collaboration. We work closely with the HAA and our college fund reps, and we continually explore ways to initiate cross-class projects.
So ClassACT is a flexible model. Each class has its own character and decides to do things in its own way. So there's no single ClassACT model. Each class defines its model based on the interests of their classmates, available leadership. And I will say that leadership is key. If you want to have something work in this way, if you want to have a really strong volunteer group, you're going to have some leaders who are kind of Pied Pipers, who will engage people and get people to feel that they have value and that they can work together and to create a really positive environment. Also, classes decide on which issues are priorities for them and so what they're going to work on. And finally, it's critically important to have a desire to create a community around working together. Stan?
Yes, ClassACT often begins with a simple moment, a conversation, a question, a shared sense of purpose. Those moments lead to action. Working groups form, ideas take shape, partnerships emerge. And over time, something bigger happens. Interest spreads, other classes begin forming ClassACTs, and a broader community takes shape, working together across and among classes.
So
Marion?
we now like to, we're telling you a little bit about our story. There's a lot more about it on our website, which is ClassACT HR73.org. And meanwhile, we have representatives from two other ClassACTs who would like to tell you their story. And so now I'd like to invite Liz Losos from the class of 85 to talk to you about the work that how they formed themselves and the work they've been doing. Liz, welcome.
Thank you. And lovely video. Really appreciated that. So I'm from the class of 85, and a lot of what you heard is quite similar, like the draw of pulling classmates and bunch of the activities. I'll try to point out some of the things that are actually different to kind of emphasize this point that each class is different. We started at our 35th reunion, which was COVID year, and we had, before COVID started, we already had a pretty active pre-reunion series of online events that were mostly focused on social impact. And so when COVID hit, we already sort of had the apparatus to hold an online reunion, which turned out, all things considered, to go very well, and had quite a few panels, especially of our classmates that were doing different social impact related activities. And so after the reunion, a bunch of us said, hey, we should really continue this. And our reunion chair, Debbie Kaufman, said, hey, I've heard about this ClassACT. They're holding some events. Sounds like what you want to do is similar to what they're doing. So we went to a session or two and we spoke with Jonathan and Marion and various others and decided this was a good model. And so we started. We've never become an NGO, a 501c3. We're just a loose organization. We have a steering committee, and the first thing that we did was send out a survey to our classmates. Do you want to be involved? What topics are you interested in, et cetera, et cetera? And came up with three groups, working groups, one on democracy protection, one on health equity, and one on climate. And I would say democracy protection and health equity are quite similar to some of the things that you've already heard, but the working group on climate is probably the one that's the most different. So I'll just mention a few things about that group, and that I actually have been co-leading that, and I've also led the steering committee, which doesn't meet very often, but the climate working group meets every month. We're quite regular. We have, I would say, about 12 active members, maybe 8 show up for most meetings. And several things make this different than the others. The first was we were really not focused on educational programming, but rather trying to look for impact. And we spent a while figuring out what we wanted to do, but we decided a great focus would be to really push Harvard to step up, become more of a climate leader. And just as we decided to do that, it was just at the same moment that Larry Bacow made this big announcement that Harvard was going to assign a new assistant provost for climate and sustainability, and was going to set up the Salata Center. So we thought this is great. We're gonna sort of push from the outside to make sure they really stick to really the quite dramatic goals that he set out. We met with him early. He said, "Great, tell me what it is that alumni care about." So we developed a survey for our class, and then 4 other classes took on the survey. The SIG, HACE, which is the climate SIG, ran this survey for us, and we came up with a series of moonshots using a lot of different people throughout the Harvard community who helped us figure out how Harvard might go about it. 8 different moonshots. And then we started meeting with different members of the Harvard administration. So we've done this also.
Liz,
85,
we're
yeah.
almost out of time.
Yep, I'll just finish this up. 85 has been the lead, but one of the fun things is we've really started to work with other classes that have climate or environment groups that have really stepped up. And so it's been a lot of fun, but a lot of that has been that cross-class opportunity. And I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. And they have done wonderful work and connected with Salata Institute, and 85 really has been a massive leader for this and are making an impact. So thank you so much. And George Yeadon of the class of 75, their group is called Impact 75. George, are you here?
Right here. To tell our story, we were at our 45th reunion year was 2020. So it included both the COVID as well as all of the what we'll call social injustice activities, from Black Lives Matter to the George Floyd incident and all the contingent parts there. But we had planned a panel for our reunion related to social justice, and it was so oversubscribed that we moved on from there with a group of people who said they wanted to continue to do that kind of work. The ClassACT 73, HR73 was a role model for us. So we mimicked many of their initiatives in terms of who we wanted to be involved. It was initially to be a class cohort focus, thinking of all the people that were in the class who had actually done social impact work or volunteer work during their lives. And we wanted to tap that resource and that experience to not only talk about what had been done and what was possible, but what could be done. There was a virtual reunion, just like the class of 85 that year. So we had learned the experience of the video networking and saw that as a way to pull people together because we didn't know how long the pandemic was going to last and when we could get back together again. We set up monthly meetings with a focus on social justice issues and with the hope that the network would inspire each other to take productive actions, both individually and as a group, to advance a variety of causes. The focus that we had were on several different areas. One was environmental justice. There was a race and racism group that was a spinoff from the actual impact activities that we were working on, and that had a lot to do with not only understanding history better, but also to provide an introspective vehicle where people could think back to their own lives and see where they reacted to things over the years. In particular, a lot of the conversation we had in those monthly meetings tied back to what their experience was like on campus and then how that experience informed the balance of their lives. And we still maintain that today. There was a diversity or DEI and legacy of slavery arm to our work where we wanted to stay in touch with what was happening at the school, which eventually evolved into the whole admissions situation, as well as what we're seeing today with the attack on DEI. Later on, we got actively involved in the Crimson Courage movement, both for the Claudia Gay presidency situation, as well as what's happening in general with the battles on the college campuses these days. We sponsored a democracy town hall series during the 2024 election, where we had guest speakers come in both from the class and extended beyond the class to have panel discussions. There's at least one overseas charity in Africa that we have sponsored and helped to grow. And then we branched off into topics such as censorship and history erasure in terms of the social justice aspect. Probably the biggest project we've been working on or take the most pride in is an environmental justice one led by John Hall, who has spent most of his life working on these same kinds of projects, but has expanded it to include cross-university involvement, college student participation through internships and actual summer employment, as well as a direct connection to the legacy of slavery project work. And they've been the recipient of a grant from that in this initial set of projects that were supported. Our involvement with ClassACT 73 has taken advantage of the infrastructure that they've set up. But as well, we've worked with them to try to pull together these 18 different groups that you've heard about a little bit earlier today. And we continue to work with them. We've also established a relationship with the Phillips Brooks House, which continues to be the social project and social service focus for the university as well. So we look forward to continuing to work both on our own within the class, extend the invitation to everyone to participate with us in the work that we're doing, but to also agree on where those common areas we can collaborate on and fulfill the mission of each of our groups, be it a specific class cohort or across the alumni community in general. So that's our story of 73.
Thank you so much, George. And George has spoken to the kind of sense of community that the various different class acts have experienced as we have grown as a community. And we have been so grateful to both 75 and 85 and all the other classes for engaging with us and for sharing ideas and sharing program. It's been an extraordinary thing. ClassACT is an opportunity. And just as you've heard from our other two wonderful colleagues, we can talk about all the opportunities that it provides. So it provides classmate collaboration, and through that, you get diverse expertise and networking. and the capacity for large initiatives. And for us, for instance, with ClassACT HR73, our current large initiative under our Democracy at 250 program is going to be voter engagement for this coming election. So there's a capacity for large initiatives. As Stan earlier, we work with nonprofits, and so there's often one-on-one pro bono advice that can be given to classmates who work in nonprofits. This creates community built around shared purpose, and there is really nothing better than working with people on something that matters to you to create something really positive. And the meaningful connections are extraordinary for all of us. As I think Donna said in the video, we've met people that we never would have known. And I will say for myself that during college, many of my classmates intimidated the heck out of me. And now, I talk to Nobel Prize winners, and I talk to all these other people that I would not have felt comfortable talking to because I didn't understand their expertise, and I'm learning from them. So there's a great learning capacity as well as a capacity to do good work in the world. There's no question that we who are older can say to you all who are younger and to everyone that this is this is maybe the most challenging moment in our lives in the world. And challenging moments require action, and that action needs to come out of collaboration. So in this really polarized environment, we need to come together and find our commonalities and collaborate to do good things. We need more than ever to be engaged in our society, and we need to find and create informed leaders. And that is something that can be done beautifully through Harvard classes. And through all of this, we can work together to take intelligent action. Alumni communities are powerful, and we are an underutilized resource, and it's time for us all to step up and use our extraordinary educations to create positive change. So, Stan.
If what you've heard tonight resonates, the next step is simple. Start a conversation with a classmate or a small group. Ask what matters, what strengths you bring, and what you could do together. That's where many class acts begin. Marion?
So here's information about us. Once you have gathered some classmates and thought about what you might want to do together, please reach out to ClassACT HR73. As you heard from George, we have helped lots of classes think about how to organize themselves. And we know the pitfalls of where Jonathan and I can talk at length, and Stan too, about the pitfalls, but also the ways that you can get around them. We can help you with getting alumni, how to reach out to your classmates through and connecting with the HAA. So we are a resource, and we want to have a legacy where this kind of alumni engagement becomes something critically important, not only to the alumni, but to the university and to the world, so that we're paying the world back for the extraordinary opportunity we have had through our Harvard education. So ClassACT, as we have said, is not a single organization. It is a shared model and an open invitation, and we invite you all to join us.